Jacob Black had always felt like something inside him was about to break. He didn't know what, only that every time Bella suffered, every time he saw her cry over Edward, his chest burned with a strange primal fire. It was more than jealousy. It was something ancestral, something in his blood, something not yet awakened. When Bella began spending time in La Push after Edward left, Jacob became her salvation. And that, for him, was enough. Until the day everything changed. They were in the woods, near the cliffs. Bella had gone ahead, as always, exploring carelessly. Jacob followed with a light step, laughing, until the wind carried a scent that wasn't human. And he knew. Laurent. The vampire appeared among the trees like a ghost. His red eyes glowed with thirst. "What a sweet scent you have, Bella," he said, smiling with his fangs exposed. Jacob stepped between them without thinking. But he wasn't a wolf. Not yet. His body hadn't changed. His gene was still dormant, and that left him vulnerable. Laurent didn't hesitate. He lunged. Bella screamed. Jacob couldn't move fast enough. Laurent's jaws reached him, but he didn't kill him. Laurent, curious, sensed something different in his blood. Something incomplete. Something valuable. And in an unexpected gesture, instead of killing him, he transformed him. He turned him. Jacob Black died that night and was reborn 3 days later as a vampire. Bella's dreams became nightmares. They didn't know what had happened to Jacob. His body had vanished. Charlie organized searches. The Quileute searched tirelessly, but they didn't find him because Jacob was hidden in the darkness, alone, awake, thirsty, and confused. The first thing he saw was the moon, then his own hands, paler skin, red eyes, inhuman strength, and a hunger that tore him apart from within. Jacob screamed in rage, in pain, in hatred, because he knew what he was. A monster, an enemy of his people, a traitor to his blood. When he returned to Forks, it was at night, not because he wanted to hide, but because the sun burned. The first time he saw Bella after his transformation was through her bedroom window. She was sleeping. He watched her from afar, and for the first time, he understood Edward, because now he wanted her too, not just with his heart, with his hunger. The second time they met, Bella didn't recognize him. Jacob's face was hardened, his eyes red like blood. "Jake," he nodded, but said nothing. Because he didn't know who he was. He was no longer Billy Black's son, no longer the warm beach boy, no longer the loyal friend. He was something dangerous. "What happened to you?" "The same thing that happened to him," Jacob whispered. "Now we're the same." And in that sentence, there was an indescribable hatred. The pack felt it. They didn't know what, but something at the edge of La Push had changed. Sam tensed. Embry and Quill couldn't sleep peacefully, and when Jacob crossed the line, the alarms exploded. "It can't be," Sam murmured. "It's impossible." But it was real. Jacob Black, heir to the Quileute bloodline, was now one of their most feared enemies, a vampire. And yet, they couldn't kill him, because he was still one of them, even if everything said otherwise. Bella was devastated. Edward didn't know how to react. "Now you understand why I stayed away from you," he said one night, his voice broken. "Because this is what happens." Bella didn't reply. She couldn't, because deep down something tormented her more. Jacob still loved her, and she no longer knew who her heart belonged to. Edward, her soul. Jacob, her fire. And now both were immortal, both were dangerous, and both desired her. Jacob had stopped breathing weeks ago, but now, every time he saw Bella, he felt air return to his lungs. Even if it was an illusion, even if he was no longer human, even if the only real thing left in him was thirst. Bella didn't sleep. She couldn't. She dreamed of two faces, one golden, one red. One looked at her with silent devotion, the other with restrained fire, and between them she broke. The Cullens accepted him, reluctantly, cautiously, but they accepted him. Because Bella asked, "If you leave him alone, we'll lose him." Edward knew it, and though every inch of his body rebelled, he listened. "He's not like us," he said one night, his voice barely a whisper. Bella looked at him. "You weren't either at first." The pack, however, did not forgive. Jacob crossed the border, and Sam attacked him, not out of hatred, out of instinct. Wolves don't think when they smell death. And Jacob was walking death. The fight didn't last long. Jacob didn't want to fight, not against them, but Sam didn't stop, and when he was about to tear Jacob's throat out, Bella stepped between them. "Stop!" Her scream shattered the forest. Her voice, human, fragile, was the only thing that halted the massacre. Sam stepped back, trembling, and Jacob, bloodied, ran. Not out of fear, but because he no longer belonged anywhere. Days later, Edward found him, in the mountains, alone, clothes torn, eyes nearly black. "You're gonna kill me," Jacob said, unmoving. Edward shook his head. "No. Then what do you want?" Edward stared at him. "I want you to fight for who you are." Jacob laughed bitterly. "And what am I? Someone who can still choose." When Jacob returned, he didn't ask for forgiveness, nor did he ask to be let in. He just waited. And little by little, the Cullens began to understand, because Jacob, in his own way, was learning to be one of them. Bella was torn. By love, by loyalty, by the future. And then, the unthinkable happened. A new threat came to Forks. A wild newborn, created by someone unknown, with one clear goal: to kill Bella. The fight was brutal. Edward launched in without hesitation. Alice was wounded, Emmett was knocked down, and Bella was left alone. Almost. Because then, Jacob appeared, like a dark lightning bolt, and with all the fury of his divided soul, he protected Bella. He killed the newborn, and fell to his knees, drained. "I'm not gonna lose you. Not you. Not me." Bella embraced him, not out of love, not out of passion, for something deeper, for forgiveness. She didn't choose between them. Not then. Because love isn't always a choice. Sometimes it's a wound that heals with time, not with answers. And Jacob finally found peace. Not as a human, nor as a wolf, not even as a vampire, but as himself. Something new, something unique, something that had been reborn in darkness and chose not to be consumed by it. And though Bella never loved him the way she loved Edward, Jacob knew something no one else ever would. What truly hurts is to love without conditions, and still continue choosing good, even if it means walking alone.